Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you are a true fan of music, you should subscribe below right now. Check the notification bell to always get our content. Every day we've got something special for you. Now FYI, we released a really cool Huey Lewis piece recently on Patreon. If you want to become a patron and support this mission of keeping the music alive, click on the Patreon link below. We also have other exclusive content there as well. Now, as most of you know, I am a certified chart geek. I suppose it was born out of listening to Casey Kasem's American Top 40 every single week. And like many of you, I'm sure, every week that I'd listen, I would write down all of the chart positions for every single song. And of course, I'd root for my favorite song to hit #1 and make up my own top 10 lists and such. And then I realized that Casey was using the Billboard charts as his reference. And man, that opened up a whole new world to me. I would buy Billboard magazine whenever we made it to the mall, which was many miles from the small town in Idaho that I grew up in. So it was maybe like once a month at that. And I'd get an issue, but I would savor that magical data. I'd read and consume every single page about my favorite artists and albums. I now have digital copies of all those magazines from the 80s and all the ones I missed as a kid. And I have audio files of every single American Top 40 show. And as I've said before, I'm astounded by the top 10 of any given week in the 80s. It's like any list is just amazing how many songs we still hear today and we see in pop culture. Well, I was looking at the top 10 for a certain week in 1983 just recently, and I was taken aback by the quality of each and every song. So every now and then what I'd like to do is talk about a top 10 for a certain week in the rock era, do a quick commentary for the 10 songs, and then do a close-up on one particular song for the week, usually with the artists that were actually there that sang it or wrote it. So let's look at the top 10 for May 7th, 1983. We'll go from number 10 to number 1. At number 10, I Won't Hold You Back by TOTO. This is one of their greatest ballads, in my opinion. Steve Lukather sings his guts out on this, and his guitar solo is truly inspired.
No, I won't hold you back.
And this is a song that we're actually going to go in depth in a moment. Now, at number 9, you got Little Red Corvette by Prince. I mean, how should I describe this song? Mind-blowing? Check. Otherworldly? Check. Our parents probably disapproved at the time? Check. I mean, seriously, this song is out of this world. Prince was truly in a league of his own. It would peak at number 6, but it should have been a number 1 hit. I promise to cover this one in detail very soon. Now, at number 8, you have Mr. Roboto from Styx. A song that definitely divided fans of Styx. In fact, it not only divided fans for the band, but I think it forced fans to pick a side for good. Team Dennis or Team Tommy. We have the in-depth story of this one from Dennis that we'll release down the road. At number 7, you have She Blinded Me With Science by synth pioneer Thomas Dolby. His biggest hit and a song that is really a study in synth pop. Always loved the video. Now, at number 6, Overkill by Men at Work, my personal favorite Men at Work song ever. We chose this one recently in our 80s Hidden Gems, and Colin Hay actually gives direct commentary. It's really a song for insomniacs and worrywarts alike.
Night after night, my heartbeat shows the fear.
Now, at number 5, you have the bona fide 80s Hidden Gem, Der Kommissar, by After the Fire. Now, I always thought that After the Fire lead singer Andy Percy sounded like Robert Smith on this song. Der Kommissar was written by Falco, who would of course have a massive hit years later with Rock Me Amadeus. And interestingly, the song barely made it to the top 50 in the band's native UK. Now, at number 4, we have Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners, a no doubt about it smash hit that was the spoiler to Michael Jackson, who at the time was breaking about every record in the book with Thriller. Come On Eileen's placement at number 1 just a few weeks before this actually stopped MJ from replacing himself at the number 1 position. That was a feat that only the Beatles had accomplished up to that point. We'll cover this song for sure in the future. At number 3, Let's Dance by David Bowie. The legendary chameleon proving that he could remake his image yet again and compete with any artist or song from any decade. Let's Dance was the first of 3 hit singles from the album of the same name. And at number 2, Jeopardy by the Greg Kihn Band. This song was so big back then that Weird Al did a terrific parody of it. Remember, instead of Our Love's in Jeopardy, I Lost on Jeopardy. And at number 1, Beat It by Michael Jackson. At this moment, like I said, Thriller was breaking every record in the book. And outside of Billie Jean, this was the biggest song from that album. I said song, not video, remember? Speaking of Steve Lukather, who played on it and may have written the main guitar riff of the song, actually, and of course it has that mind-altering, just face-melting guitar solo by the late King Edward Van Halen. This song was a guaranteed number 1 hit from the word go, and it gave the album and the artist a little bit of rock cred there. So that's the top 10 for the week of May 7th, 1983, and I would dare anyone that's watching this to seek out another top 10 for the last 25 years, 30 years, that's remotely comparable. If you think you can, please present it in the comments below and we'll talk about it. Looking at this top 10, if you were to recalculate the songs based on the last almost 40 years, would it change at all? For sure. I'm actually working on a formula for this exact redux. Do the songs still stand up this many decades later? How many times have they been streamed? How many copies have been sold since their heyday? How many views of the music video on YouTube? How many times has it popped up in pop culture, movies or TV or video games? So I'm not finished with this criteria just yet. I'm almost there, but just to eyeball it, I would say that the number 1 spot would likely remain the same. Beat It has been streamed almost 500 million times on Spotify alone since Spotify started. After that, I'd say that Jeopardy hasn't held its popularity nearly as much as the other songs, so that would likely go to number 10. Come On Eileen would likely be second, as it's held its ground and then some since its release. Same with Let's Dance by David Bowie. Mr. Roboto has just been a pop culture touchstone. The lyrics alone are a definite part of the lexicon for sure. Little Red Corvette would be top 5 for sure, as Prince's legend only just grows. Overkill, popped up again when Colin Hay made an appearance on Scrubs. He performed an acoustic version that made us all realize how incredible it was. Der Kommissar and She Blinded Me with Science are quintessentially 80s, so they'd be in the middle or toward the end. When I finish the 80s Redux formula, I'll give the final assessment, but the song that stands out to me here as a true hidden gem that deserves a deeper evaluation and repeated listens is I Won't Hold You Back by Toto. Like I said, I think it's one of Toto's most powerful ballads. That's saying something. It's a song that's very undervalued, very underappreciated. So let's go deeper with the actual band. Here is Steve Lukather and David Paich from Toto on the song. As we go into the interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear, very stylish. Get yourself a pair at the link below. Here are Luke and Paich.
Realize just how much you care.
I Won't Hold You Back. Let's talk about that for a
Great
second,
song.
because
Oh, thanks.
here you are, one of the great rock guitarists, but you're a great ballad writer, man.
I've always been a sucker for that stuff. I
Yeah.
loved Elton. I just love a good melody. Matter of fact, wrote that song when we were doing the Turnback record. I was sitting out, waiting for things to happen. And, you'd sneak out in the studio and there'd be a grand piano and it'd be dark and nobody was there. And you could mess around, you know what I mean? Try to do something constructive while busy work was going on.
Waiting for me.
Well, there was waiting for Dave, but there was also a lot of times where they'd have to do technical stuff, and we'd
Yeah.
just sit around, and you'd get that moment by yourself out there with this really great grand piano in an empty room. It's an empty recording studio. It was great. So I started dicking around with it, and once again, we were making the TOTO IV record, and I thought, oh, this is going to be too ballady. I don't think the guys are going to like this. And I played it. I was playing it around, and somebody said, Dave, I think, said, that's really good. You should cut that song. So I kind of was once again waiting for Dave at Sunset Sound, and I started playing the piano thing. Jeff started digging and sitting around playing with me, and I wrote the solo section. I said, I don't have a bridge for this thing. And I wrote the solo section right away. Dave walked in, and Jeff goes, let Paich play this. So the two of them cut the song, and then we overdubbed everything to it. And then, they said, well, let's go to London and do the strings with the London Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
brought in James Newton Howard and your dad, and you did an amazing arrangement for this thing that made it epic. It was really, for me,
Really
going,
a pocket
going for the
symphony,
Elton
man.
John thing, Mad Man Across the Water, Yellow Brick Road thing, because we're huge Elton fans.
I got to say a couple things about this song in retrospect. I want to give him a couple compliments here, but it's funny because what's great about the process on that song was there was no demos made and stuff. I walked in and everyone was crowded around the piano, and he was sitting at the piano playing. So I remember, and Jeff goes, "You got to hear this song that he played and everything like that," and he played the whole thing from top to bottom.
Realize just how much you care.
Now, I make records to me. The songs I've made are like the lines and stuff to me are really good records, but they're not great songs. If you take the song, this guy's a great songwriter. To me, he's the songwriter in total because you can strip all this stuff down and hear these melodies like "I'll Be Over You." Won't Hold You Back. And one of my goals is to write something that stands alone like that. My stuff needs its flaw, needs its production.
Did you have a mini stroke or something like that?
Why was I not maybe? No, I think about these things. I'm being very honest when it comes to, because I read an article about Mick Jagger, what's the difference between a great record and a great song. It's like Beast of Burden. It's a record and everything. But you take something like Wild Horses as a song, because it's got great melody and it has all this. I think this guy's a great songwriter.
There's no question.
Won't Hold You Back is truly one of the great songs that's come out of Toto.
One of the great songs.
I think it's going to be a classic. It's going to go on for a while.
Like I said, a pocket symphony, kind of a kickback to those days of like what Brian Wilson, some of those guys were doing with the pocket symphony. Where you had.
It was a big production. I have to say that the record itself transformed this simple little piano song into more of an epic piece. So I got to give that to the guys. Everybody brought it. We had Timothy B. Schmidt come and sing on it. And he ended up going on the road with us for a couple of years after the TOTO IV tour because the Eagles broke up. And he was like, I don't have anything to do. I go, well, come on the road with us. We did some horrible things to Timothy.
The practical jokes.
He's like, that was a really naughty period of time for us. And we had a lot of fun. It was a really great time.
You're vocal on that, man.
No, Dave helped me get that out of me. I was really terribly insecure about all that. Dave always got
just helped find the last.
He got great vocals out of all of us. Really.
Before the second chorus, they call it the money note. That high note right there. Go up for that. He had it all. He had it. There. It was all there.
And my wife told me, she's a huge Toto fan with me. She's like, you better freaking ask about it. I Won't Hold You Back.
It was just one of those things you have in the back pocket. I didn't think anybody would like the song. Yeah. Just like he didn't think anybody would like Africa. You know what I mean? Sometimes we got to stop editing ourselves.
When you have a ballad, it forces you to, when something's taking so much time to get from here to here, it makes you listen to the words, listen to the melody. It has to be good melody and good words to withstand. Quincy Jones, another thing when we came to picking singles, it's like Rosanna had been out, Rosanna done good, and we asked Quincy, what's the next single? And he says, well, you guys have a ballad on there because Rosanna, and he heard Won't Hold You Back, and he said, there's your next single right there. Yeah. So we released that, and
Tell me about the solo on that.
I was sort of on the spot. We were sitting in the studio, and he was like, I like the song. It needs a bridge. So the hands fell. It was like a gift from God, and I just followed all the way down and said, well, that works perfectly. Let's just insert that. And all I did was write the melody. I just played the melody on the guitar. It's a very simple, soaring melody, but it just worked.
Real classic.
Great tone.
Sometimes you don't have to play that much to say a lot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Other times you play too much and you say nothing. I've been on both sides of that fence.
And this came out right at that time where you had these big blockbuster albums. And the 80s were the kind of perfect time for those huge albums from Michael Jackson, Thriller, TOTO IV, to Springsteen, Born in the USA,
And The Wall, we had all the stuff.
Police, Synchronicity, all those big
We listened to all,
albums.
those are all the records that we were listening to for inspiration. Steely Dan, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
All the, you look at Asia and Royal Scam and all those kind of records.
Yeah.
And at that period of time, they were a huge
big
influence.
sellers. You know what I mean? Boston was coming out. Foreigner came out.
Ario,
there was a lot of competition up there when we were first trying to put our band together.
I mean, that was you had to be competitive with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And and then we were also working on a lot of the records that were our competition.
Yeah.
We were competing against ourselves.
Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about this hidden gem. Tell us what you think. I think you should add it to your playlist, which you can hear all of the songs I've talked about on here in our YouTube playlist below. We're going to start doing that with every piece of content. Make sure to subscribe below and click the bell so you never miss our daily features. You can get all these classics on vinyl below. Click on our Amazon links for more content just like this and to support our mission of curating the history of this amazing era. Check out our Patreon link as your support is paramount. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, seriously, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.